Good afternoon everyone. My name is James Diffin and I'm the most recent addition to the e-learning advisor team here at RSCni. My apologies for not being able to be with you all this afternoon. I'm actually out at one of the college campuses delivering a little bit of training, but hopefully I'll be in touch with you all at some stage soon and I'm greatly looking forward to that. My little presentation for today is entitled Untether the Classroom, and it's really about the fact that given we're using mobile devices more and more in our classrooms, can they provide a viable replacement for things like our interactive whiteboards? Can we get to a place where our lecturers or even our pupils are no longer bound to the front of the classroom or to their desks because they're able to disseminate information to your class from anywhere in a room using a mobile device? If that technology exists, how then can we use it to help with our blended learning and our flipped classrooms? Well, today we're going to have a look at an iPad app called Doceri, which is known as the Professional Interactive Whiteboard app. So how does it work? Well, quite simply, the Doceri app provides a suite of tools not unlike those you would find installed with our current interactive whiteboards. You can begin with a blank canvas or upload images or presentations to the app. You then use the suite of tools provided to annotate, manipulate, and generally interact with your material. As it's an iPad app, the interaction is all done on your iPad instead of on the surface of an interactive whiteboard, leaving lecturers free to present from anywhere in a classroom or even pass their iPad out to their learners to get their input. Everything that's done on the iPad is projected onto a wall or screen through a normal data projector, and you can also save a video of your lesson, including audio captured from your iPad microphone, so that you can upload it to your VLE at a later stage. This is also where Doceri contributes to your flipped classroom. You can use the app in your own time and your own space without a projector to record a lecture or teaching session, including audio, and upload that to your VLE as a flipped lesson for your learners to engage with outside of classroom time.
So if you're using Doceri in your teaching, how do you go about projecting Doceri through your iPad onto a screen at the front of your classroom? Well, you could simply plug a cable directly between your data projector and your iPad, but that almost defeats the purpose of the app. With Doceri, we're trying to remain mobile and wireless, and by using a cable, you're tethering yourself to the front of the classroom again. Our first two alternatives revolve around establishing a wireless connection between your iPad and your PC. Your PC is then connected to a data projector, which projects the images onto the screen at the front of the classroom. The first option is to download the Doceri desktop application. Where the Doceri app for iPad is available for free, the Doceri desktop application comes at a license cost of £18 per machine. The one benefit that it does have, however, is that it promises to remove any watermarks from any materials you produce. So because you're providing Doceri with a little bit of income, they're happy to remove their branding from the materials that you make. Alternatively, you could use a slightly cheaper option of the Air Server service. It comes at a license cost of £7 per machine, and it's a fairly standard service that allows you to wirelessly connect your iPad to your PC and project anything that's happening on your iPad screen through your PC and therefore through your projector. Some of you who are using iPads in your teaching already may own an Air Server license. The third option skips out the PC completely, and that is to use the Apple TV service. So the iPad connects to the Apple TV instead, which is plugged directly into the projector and therefore broadcasts the images onto the screen at the front of the classroom. This is perhaps the most expensive option, as an Apple TV base unit comes at about £100. So what I've done now, folks, is I've prepared a little 8-minute demonstration for you that you can watch along with now, and hopefully that will give you a flavour for the Doceri application and give you some ideas as to how you might be able to integrate it into your own teaching. Doceri is known as the professional whiteboard application for iPad, but it's also a powerful tool that can help you flip your classroom. In this short demo, I'm going to show you how to use Doceri for iPad. I'm also going to broadcast a smaller window in the bottom right hand corner of your video that emulates a data projector feed. This will give you a sense of what students in a classroom would see if their teacher was using Doceri as their whiteboard. So without further ado, let's move on with our little demo. As I mentioned before, Doceri is currently available as an app for the iPad. At the moment it's only available for iPad, but there are rumours that it's currently in development for both Android and Windows tablets as well, and that we might see it as soon as the autumn. This is my Doceri dashboard where I'm able to create new Doceri presentations, but also view and modify any that I've given in the past. So I can click on an old presentation, and using the left and right arrows in the top corners, I can move through the slides. This lets me reuse a presentation with, say, for instance, a different class. I'm going to close this and go back to my dashboard and choose the Start a New Project button in the bottom left-hand corner. It asks me to choose a resolution. I'll just choose the default for iPad to load my blank canvas for my interactive whiteboard. If you compare the two feeds that you're seeing, you'll note that where along the top of my iPad I have the icons representing the various tools that I'm going to use. I don't have any of that in the projector feed. Students therefore won't see a teacher switching between tools, they'll just see the product of those tools as they're used. Along the top of my iPad, in the center of the screen, you'll note a collection of 7 icons that represent the pens and shapes I'm going to use in the course of my presentation. I'm using a stylus here, but equally I could just use my finger. At the extreme left is a fountain pen tool which I'm going to choose, and once I have, I can modify the size of my pen, or I can change, for instance, the opacity of the ink. I can also, if I want to, change the color, pick a different color, but once I'm happy with it, I can simply begin to write on my iPad. As I write, you'll note that everything is transmitted through the computer and the data projector onto the screen that the students would be seeing at the front of the room. And that's it at its simplest level. You can see from the projector view that everything I've written has been mirrored through the data projector and all of the relevant information is now on screen. Just like an interactive whiteboard, I can now open up a blank canvas on which to continue my lesson. I can do this without erasing what I've previously done by clicking on the right arrow in the top right hand corner to move to a new slide. I can always click on the left arrow to go back and view or modify slide 1. Okay, following on from the fountain pen then, we've got a marker pen tool, and it functions very similarly. We can change the size of it if we want, we can change the colour of it if we want, but once we're happy with it, just like the fountain pen, we can just begin to write on our whiteboard canvas. And again, you'll note that as I write, everything's transmitted through the projector feed onto the screen for our students to see. Next along then, we've got our highlighter tool. So again, we can select it or tap it a second time if we want to choose the various options associated with it, change the size, the opacity, the color. Again, once we're happy, we can use that just as we would a highlighter to draw attention to, say, a piece of text that we've just written. The next 3 tools then are all shapes. So it begins with the line, and again we can tap it a couple of times to change our settings, change the thickness of the line, change the color of the line, modify those as we want. And once we're happy, it's just a matter of clicking once and dragging it out to form our line. So it's just like we would use in Microsoft Word, and exactly the same thing can be said of the square tool and indeed the circle tool. Just click and drag those out. The next tool along then is just the rubber, so we can use that just to erase anything that we want to get rid of, whether it be a mistake or we're just modifying something to suit our purpose. Next then, we've got 3 handy icons that allow us to modify what we've done, and that begins with the undo icon here. So we can just click that to undo the last thing we did, or click the redo to redo something that we've undone. Then we've got the erase all, which clears our whiteboard down completely, resets it back to the blank canvas. We don't have to have just a blank canvas though. This icon here is the background icon, which allows us to insert a background into our Doceri whiteboard, and that might be graph paper like this. With something like graph paper selected, we could then use that in a maths class or an engineering class or whatever it might be to, say, plot a graph for our students, to show them how to plot points on a graph if we wished. I'm going to clear that all down. And as well as the sort of simple graph paper backgrounds, we've got other things like maps. And choosing a map of Australia as my background gives me a good opportunity to demonstrate the record function of Doceri. This feature lets you either capture a live lecture or record teaching in your own time for a flipped classroom approach. And since Doceri can access your iPad's microphone, it'll capture all of the audio as well. I'm going to record everything I'm about to do, including my audio, and I'll insert the video that Doceri produces so you can see an example.
Okay, so we're going to label the territories of Australia here. So I'm going to draw on all the borders first, just before I start to label them. Across here, and down in the southeast. Okay, and it's like the fountain pen now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my my pinch function to zoom on the iPad here, just to give me a little bit more room to work with when I'm labelling these. So we'll zoom in a little bit here, and then we'll start to label these. So start with Western Australia. Zoom a little bit. And notice I'm using my 2 fingers just to move the screen across to where I want it. Northern Territory. And South Australia. And I'll not label anymore. I think that's sufficient to give you an idea of how you can use the record function to record what you're doing.
Once I finish with my recording, Doceri adds that to my recordings library, and from there I could upload it to YouTube or save it and upload it to my VLE at a later stage. So the background images are just one way we can add those kind of visual elements to our Doceri presentations. The other way is to add our own images. So I'm going to revert back to a plain whiteboard background here, and then use this image button to access my iPad's photo library. From there I can choose any image that I've got saved in my iPad. In this case it's an image of an engine, and then use that as part of my lecture or presentation. So you can see here that you could save pictures off the internet or send pictures to yourself or whatever was the most useful way, and then use that just as you would an image in an interactive whiteboard. Circle important points, get your students to label points that they need to know about, for instance, and use that just to get everyone involved in a really visual element of the lecture. The very final thing then I want to highlight then is just the export button, and touching that allows us to share a single slide or export our entire lecture as a PDF. So I hope you enjoyed that little demonstration. I just want to leave you with a few summary points on Doceri today. So it's currently only available for iPad as a free app, but it's hopefully coming to Windows and Android tablets soon. You will need something to project your iPad through onto your screen at your front of your classroom, and those options are listed for you here for your consideration again. Just as a very final point, I just wanted to give you a note about some of the drawbacks of Doceri, and really the main one is that it does suffer from a very high dependency on infrastructure. Both your iPad and your PC or your Apple TV have to be on the same Wi-Fi network, and if it happens that that Wi-Fi network has incorrectly or strictly configured firewalls, it can play havoc with it. The very final thing I want to show you just as we leave today is a little video from Doceri's website which shows a teacher from America using Doceri to create a flipped lesson for his class to interact with. Thanks very much for your time today, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
I want to review how we acquired all the land that we have here. First up is we acquire the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. Thomas Jefferson leads that up. In 1819, we acquire Florida. Jackson and Monroe, John Quincy Adams is involved, but we get that land in 1819. In 1845, we annex Texas. That's led by Polk. He comes onto the picture and he starts acquiring land at a rapid pace. In 1846, Polk settles the Oregon Territory dispute, dividing that with Britain, keeping them out of the war. And then in 1846 to 1848, we fight a war with Mexico and we gain the Mexican cession. In 1854, for $10 million, we buy the Gadsden Purchase for the railroad. And that's how we did it.